Allah has chosen you. A decision was signed in the unseen.
You're not here because you're curious. You're here because Allah saw something in you during a moment no one else did. A moment of restraint. A moment of patience. A moment that mattered more than you know. If you're here right now, listening to this, it's probably because something inside you feels heavy, even if you haven't told anyone. There's a quiet confusion you've been carrying. You've been doing your best, praying, waiting, holding yourself together, and still wondering why things feel delayed, why doors keep closing, why the silence feels louder than any answer. You may not even know how to put it into words, but you feel it. And if you've ever whispered to yourself, why does it feel like everything is paused right when I need clarity the most? Then stay with me. Please don't leave yet. This message is not for everyone, but if you're still here, there's a reason this found you. Because what you're feeling right now isn't random. It's not a mistake, and it's definitely not you being forgotten. There's a decision that was signed for you long before this moment, not on paper, not in front of people, but in the unseen. And that decision, it has your name on it. I want you to breathe for a second. Just slow down with me. You don't have to be strong here. You don't have to pretend. You can just listen. You know, there are moments in life when Allah doesn't speak through sudden miracles or dramatic changes. Sometimes He speaks through delay, through waiting, through that uncomfortable space where nothing seems to move, but everything inside you is shifting. And that's the part most people don't understand. That's the part that makes people quit early. And I don't want that to be you. If this channel has ever helped you feel less alone, less confused, or more grounded, gently tap like and consider subscribing to Deen and Discipline. Not because of algorithms, but because we walk this journey together. And sometimes, just staying connected matters more than you realize. Now listen closely. There's a level of testing that almost everyone reaches. It's where motivation fades, where prayers feel quiet, where the excitement of faith turns into discipline, and most people get stuck there. They assume silence means rejection. They assume delay means denial. They assume pain means punishment. But that's not how Allah works. In fact, many of the people Allah chooses most intentionally go through the longest periods of not knowing, of waiting without explanations, of being misunderstood by people who only see the surface, of feeling like they're doing everything right, yet nothing is happening. And that's exactly where you might be right now. You see, when Allah wants to give you something small, He gives it quickly. But when He wants to give you something that will change who you are, He prepares you first, slowly, carefully, in ways that don't always feel gentle. There's a reason you've been stripped of certain comforts, a reason certain people drifted away, a reason plans fell apart even though you prayed over them. It's not because you weren't worthy. It's because what's coming requires a version of you that couldn't exist without this process. And I know that's hard to hear when you're tired. You've been patient longer than people know. You've smiled when you wanted to break. You've kept going when quitting would have been easier. And sometimes you wonder if Allah even sees that. He does. But here's something deeply important, and I want you to really sit with this. Allah doesn't rush what He protects. If He slowed things down, it's because something precious is being guarded from breaking too soon. If He kept you waiting, it's because arriving too early would have cost you more than you realize. And this is where many people misunderstand being chosen. Being chosen doesn't always feel like honor at first. Sometimes it feels like isolation. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like being the only one still standing when everyone else moved on. But there's a wisdom in that. Because while others were distracted, you were being refined. While others were rushing, you were being rooted. While others were chasing noise, you were being taught how to sit with silence. And silence, that's where Allah does some of His deepest work. There's a reason this message is reaching you now and not earlier. A reason you're hearing this at this specific point in your life. You might feel behind. You might feel late, but spiritually, you're exactly where you need to be. Let me tell you something most people won't. Not every closed door is meant to be reopened. Some are meant to protect you from walking into a version of life that would have slowly drained your faith. Some rejections aren't losses, they're redirections that save you years of regret. And if you're honest with yourself, deep down, you already know this. There were moments you begged for something, and later realized how dangerous it would have been if it worked out. There were people you couldn't imagine losing, who turned out to be lessons, not destinations. Allah knew, even when you didn't. And right now, the discomfort you feel isn't punishment, it's positioning. You're being taught patience not as waiting, but as trust. You're being taught reliance not on outcomes, but on Allah Himself. You're being trained to stand firm even when there's no applause, no reassurance, no immediate reward. That's not for everyone. That's why most people quit at this stage. They numb themselves, they distract themselves, they lower their standards, they give up on depth and settle for ease. But you didn't. You're still here. And that matters more than you know. There's a quiet strength forming inside you, a clarity that doesn't need validation, a faith that isn't dependent on everything going right. And when the time comes, when the unseen decision finally becomes visible, you'll understand why it couldn't have happened any other way. Because what's coming isn't just a blessing, it's a responsibility. And Allah never hands heavy trust to unprepared hearts. So if today feels slow, let it be slow. If answers feel delayed, let them arrive when they're meant to. Your job right now isn't to force clarity, it's to stay sincere, to keep your heart soft, to keep showing up even when motivation is gone. That's real faith. And before we reach the end, I want to ask you something gently, not to rush your answer, just to feel it. What is the one thing you've been silently asking Allah for, but stopped talking about because it hurts too much to explain? If you feel comfortable, share it in the comments, not for advice, not for fixing, but so you're not carrying it alone anymore. And if this message made you think of someone who's been struggling quietly, someone who feels forgotten or delayed, send this to them. You might be the means Allah uses to remind them they're still seen. We'll be here again. More reflections, more reminders, more grounding conversations like this on Deen and discipline. Until then, don't rush your journey. Don't compare your chapter to someone else's highlight, and don't mistake silence for absence. Allah is closer than you think, and He hasn't forgotten you. And there's something else you need to understand, something most people never realize until much later. The silence you're in right now is not empty, it's full of shaping, full of unseen alignment, full of protection you don't yet recognize. You might feel like nothing is happening because there's nothing you can point to, no announcement, no breakthrough, no clear sign you can explain to someone else. But internally, something is being rewired. Your patience is deeper than it used to be. Your awareness is sharper. Your heart doesn't attach as easily to distractions anymore. Even the things that once excited you don't hit the same. That's not boredom, that's elevation. Allah often removes the taste from temporary things before He gives you something eternal. He loosens your grip on what can't last so you're ready to hold what will. And yes, that process can feel lonely. You look around and it seems like everyone else is moving forward, getting married, building careers, finding clarity, posting smiles, sharing milestones, and you're stuck wondering why your life feels paused in comparison. But here's the truth nobody tells you. You're not behind, you're being held back on purpose. Because if you moved forward when you wanted to, you would have walked into things with the wrong version of yourself, with attachments that would have broken you later, with expectations that would have disappointed you deeply. Allah is saving you from future heartbreak by slowing you down now. That delay you resent today, one day you'll thank Allah for it with tears in your eyes. There's a reason your path feels different. a reason your struggles feel internal rather than external, a reason your tests don't always make sense to people around you. Some tests are not meant to be explained, they're meant to be endured. And if you're still listening to this, it's because something in your soul recognizes that truth. You don't need louder motivation right now. You don't need pressure. You don't need someone telling you to just be positive. What you need is reassurance. So let me say this slowly, clearly, and gently. You are not weak for feeling tired. You are not failing because you feel confused. You are not abandoned because things are quiet. You are in a phase of becoming. And becoming is rarely comfortable. Allah often chooses His strongest servants for the most subtle tests, not the kind people notice, but the kind that reshape your inner world, tests of patience without a deadline, faith without guarantees, trust without visible proof. And that's where real strength is built. If everything was explained to you right now, it would rob you of the growth that comes from surrender. If everything was easy, your reliance on Allah would remain shallow. If everything worked out quickly, your gratitude wouldn't carry depth. So Allah teaches you how to sit with uncertainty without losing hope. That's not cruelty, that's love. And I know there are nights when your thoughts get heavy, when you replay conversations, when you question decisions, when you wonder if you misunderstood the signs. You didn't. You're just human. Even the most sincere hearts have moments of doubt. Even the most faithful servants have moments where they ask, "Ya Allah, am I doing this right?" And Allah doesn't push those hearts away. He draws them closer. Sometimes through stillness, sometimes through longing, sometimes through a message like this appearing exactly when you needed it. There's a reason this video showed up for you today and not yesterday. A reason you didn't click away. A reason something told you to keep listening. Trust that. Because Allah communicates in ways we don't always recognize at first. He speaks through timing, through alignment, through moments that feel small but land deep. And right now, this moment is one of them. Before you go, I want you to sit with one final thought. What if the reason you've been tested so deeply is because what you're carrying next is heavy in the best way? What if the reason your heart feels stretched is because it's being expanded? What if the reason you've been stripped of certainty is because Allah wants your trust, not your control? You don't have to answer that now. Just let it settle. If this message gave you even a small sense of peace, stay connected. More reflections like this are coming. This journey doesn't end here, and you don't have to walk it alone. Leave a comment below with a single word that describes how you're feeling right now. Just one word. Sometimes that's enough to release what's been stuck inside. And if someone you love has been struggling in silence, share this with them. You never know how Allah might use you as a bridge for someone else's healing. Until next time, keep your heart soft, your intention sincere, and your trust anchored. Even in the silence, especially in the silence, Allah is working. There's one more layer to this that I haven't shared yet, and it's important you hear it now, while your heart is open. Sometimes Allah delays you not because you're unready, but because others are. You may not see it yet, but parts of your future are connected to people, places, and moments that are still being prepared. If you arrived too early, you would have been misunderstood, mishandled, underappreciated, even harmed. So Allah shelters you in waiting. He keeps you hidden while He aligns what needs to meet you at the right time. And that can feel frustrating when all you want is movement, progress, a sign that you're not standing still. But hidden seasons are not wasted seasons. They are protective seasons. Seeds grow in the dark before they ever break the surface. And right now, you are in the dark soil of preparation. That's why your growth doesn't look loud. That's why your journey doesn't make sense to everyone. That's why you feel like you're changing, but you can't explain how. You're becoming someone who won't be shaken by small things anymore. Someone who won't beg for what isn't meant for them. Someone who knows how to wait without resentment and hope without desperation. That kind of heart doesn't form overnight. It forms in moments like this. Moments where you choose to stay connected instead of shutting down. Moments where you keep listening instead of escaping. Moments where you trust Allah even when clarity hasn't arrived yet. And if you're honest, you're stronger now than you were before this season began. You handle pain differently. You see people more clearly. You've learned when to step back, when to stay quiet, when to protect your energy. You don't chase validation the same way. You don't panic the same way. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because Allah has been teaching you how to stand on your own feet spiritually. So when the doors open, you won't lose yourself inside them. And yes, they will open, but not in a way that shocks you, not in a way that overwhelms you, in a way that feels calm, grounded, right. You won't have to force it. You won't have to convince anyone. You won't have to prove your worth. What's meant for you will recognize you. Until then, let this season do its work. Don't rush out of it. Don't compare it. Don't label it as failure. It's formation. And if your heart feels tender right now, that's okay. Tender hearts are receptive hearts. They hear Allah more clearly than hardened ones ever could. So take this moment as reassurance, as a reminder, as a quiet confirmation. You are not forgotten. You are not delayed without reason. You are not walking this path alone. And if you're still listening, it's because deep down, you already know that. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for trusting this space. And thank you for trusting Allah even when the road feels unclear. More reflections like this are coming here on Deen and Discipline. Stay close. Until then, keep going, gently, faithfully, one step at a time. And before you fully leave this moment, I want to speak to the part of you that's been quietly asking, what if I get this wrong? Because that fear, it's been sitting with you longer than you admit. What if you waited too long? What if you trusted when you should have acted? What if you misunderstood what Allah wanted from you? These thoughts creep in late at night, when everything is quiet, when distractions fade, and you're left alone with your mind. Listen to me carefully now. Allah is not fragile. His plans don't collapse because you hesitated. His mercy doesn't disappear because you questioned. And His guidance doesn't vanish because you felt unsure. If your heart is sincere, Allah corrects your path even while you're walking it. You don't need perfect confidence. You don't need flawless decisions. You need sincerity, and you have that. That's why even your confusion has meaning. You weren't meant to rush into life blindly. You were meant to move with awareness, with reflection, with humility. That pause you're in, it's protecting you from arrogance, from attachment, from becoming someone who thinks they did it all on their own. And Allah loves when His servant knows their need for Him. There's something deeply beautiful about a person who keeps turning back to Allah even when they're unsure, even when they're tired, even when they don't have answers. That turning back, that's worship too. So if lately your does have sounded less confident and more like quiet conversations, that's okay. If your prayers feel more honest than polished, that's okay. If all you can say is, Ya Allah, I don't know, but you do, that's enough. That's trust in its purest form. And here's something else you should know. Not every sign from Allah comes as clarity. Sometimes it comes as peace after struggle. Sometimes it comes as strength you didn't know you had. Sometimes it comes as a closed door that stops hurting as much as it used to. Those are signs too. The fact that you're still standing, still believing, still hopping, even after disappointment, that's not coincidence. That's Allah sustaining you. And one day, you'll look back at this season not with pain, but with understanding. You'll see how it reshaped your priorities, how it deepened your faith, how it taught you to rely on Allah instead of outcomes. But for now, All you need to do is remain open. Open to growth. Open to trust. Open to becoming. You don't need to know the full picture yet. Just stay. If you've made it this far, I want you to do one last thing, not for the algorithm, not for numbers, but for your own heart. In the comments, write this sentence in your own words. I trust Allah even when I don't understand. And if this message feels like it wrapped around something tender inside you, share it with someone you care about, someone who's been quiet lately, someone who's been strong for too long. You never know whose heart Allah might reach through you. We'll continue this journey together here. More reminders, more stillness, more depth. Until then, don't rush what Allah is unfolding. You are exactly where you need to be. Let me stay with you a little longer, because there's a deeper reassurance your heart hasn't fully heard yet. There's a reason your story doesn't sound like everyone else's, a reason your path feels quieter, heavier, more inward. Allah did not design you to be rushed through life. He designed you to be anchored. Some people are tested with noise. You're being tested with stillness. And stillness is not emptiness. It's where truth rises to the surface. When everything slows down, you start seeing yourself clearly. Your intentions, your fears, your attachments, the things you were using to distract yourself from deeper questions. And that can feel uncomfortable, even scary, because now there's nowhere to hide. But Allah only invites hearts He trusts into that space. Think about that. He didn't give you constant distractions. He didn't drown you in ease. He didn't keep you busy enough to forget Him. Instead, He allowed you to feel, to reflect, to sit with your inner world. That's not neglect, that's intimacy. And I know there are days when you wish He would just make it obvious. A sign so clear you wouldn't doubt anymore. A change so visible you could finally relax. But faith isn't built on constant reassurance. It's built on quiet consistency. It's built when you choose not to give up on Allah, even when you don't feel Him as strongly as before. And that choice you keep making, it's shaping your future more than you realize. Because one day when ease comes, and it will, you won't forget where it came from. You won't attach your heart to the blessing instead of the giver. You won't become careless with gratitude. You'll recognize the weight of what you've been given. And that's why this season had to happen. Not to break you, to prepare you. There's a version of you forming right now that will handle joy with humility, success with restraint, love with wisdom, and loss with faith. That version of you could not exist without this waiting. So when your mind tells you you're stuck, gently remind it that roots grow downward before anything rises upward. When your heart feels tired, remind it that endurance is not weakness. And when doubt whispers that maybe you're not chosen, remember this moment. Remember that you stayed, that you listened, that something inside you recognized truth before your mind could explain it. That recognition, that pull, that quiet knowing. That's not random. That's Allah guiding you in a way only your heart would understand. As we come closer to the end now, I want you to carry this with you. You don't need to chase signs. You don't need to force timelines. You don't need to compare journeys. You need to trust that Allah's unseen decisions are kinder than your visible fears. If this video kept you company during a quiet moment, thank you for allowing it into your space. And if you want to stay connected to reminders like this, you know where to find us. Before you go, I want to ask you one final, gentle question. What are you learning about yourself in this season of waiting? Take a moment, and if you feel ready, leave your answer in the comments. Someone else might read it and feel less alone. And please, if there's someone in your life who's been silently struggling, share this with them. Not as advice, not as correction, just as presence. We'll continue this conversation in the next video. We'll go even deeper into how Allah rebuilds the heart after long seasons of silence. Until then, stay patient with yourself. Allah already is. Stay with me just a little more, because what I'm about to say is something your heart has been sensing, even if you haven't had the words for it. There's a quiet separation happening in your life right now. Not loudly, not dramatically, but gently. You're being distanced from things that once defined you, from versions of yourself that were built around survival, not purpose, from habits, expectations, even relationships that no longer match who you're becoming. And sometimes that feels like loss. You miss the old comfort, the old certainty, the version of life that felt simpler even if it wasn't healthier. You wonder why it feels harder to connect the way you used to, why certain conversations feel empty now, why your heart doesn't respond the same way. That's not coldness. That's clarity. Allah is refining your attachments. Because what's ahead of you requires a lighter heart, a clearer intention, a deeper dependence on Him rather than on people, outcomes, or routines. And yes, refinement can hurt. It can feel like outgrowing spaces before you're shown where you belong next, like being in between identities, like standing on a bridge with no clear view of the other side. But bridges are not meant to be permanent places. They're meant to be crossed. And you're crossing one right now. This is why impatience feels louder lately, why emotions rise faster, why small things hit deeper. Your system is recalibrating. Your soul is adjusting to a higher level of awareness. Most people numb this stage. They scroll past it. They drown it out. They distract themselves until the feeling fades. But you didn't. You leaned in. And that's why this message keeps meeting you where you are. There's a saying in spiritual wisdom that the deeper the work Allah is doing inside you, the quieter it looks on the outside. And that's exactly what's happening here. You're not meant to prove this season to anyone. Not everyone will understand your patience. Not everyone will respect your boundaries. Not everyone will see the strength it takes to wait without becoming bitter. That's okay. This season isn't for their approval. It's for your alignment. And alignment doesn't announce itself, it settles. You'll notice it in the way you respond instead of react, in the way you let go without drama, in the way you trust Allah without demanding timelines. That's maturity of the heart. And Allah values that deeply. As we slowly come toward the end now, I want to remind you of something essential. Whatever you're waiting for, it's not being delayed to punish you. It's being protected to preserve you. And when it arrives, it will arrive with peace, not chaos, with recognition, not confusion, with gratitude, not regret. You won't need to chase it. You'll know. If this video felt like a quiet companion rather than a lecture, that's intentional. This space is meant to feel safe, grounded, human. If you haven't already, gently like the video and stay connected by subscribing to Deen and Discipline, not for content, but for consistency. These reminders work best when they meet you over time. Before we close, let me ask you something deeply personal. What part of your life are you learning to surrender right now? You don't have to explain it fully. Even a few words in the comments is enough. Sometimes numbing it loosens its grip. And if this message gave you comfort, pass it on. Someone else may need these words more than they know. In the next video, we'll talk about what happens after long patience, how Allah restores what was lost, and why some blessings only come after silence. Until then, don't rush yourself. You're not late. You're being prepared. There's one final truth I want to leave resting gently with you, because this is where everything we've talked about quietly comes together. At some point in this journey, Allah stops removing things from your life and starts returning things to you. Not the same way, not the same form, but with more clarity, more peace, more balance. What you lost before came back as wisdom. What didn't work out came back as direction. What broke you came back as strength. But this only happens after a certain kind of patience, the kind that doesn't rush Allah, the kind that doesn't bargain with faith, the kind that says, even if I don't understand this yet, I still trust you. And that's the patience you're learning now. You might not see the reward yet, but it's already moving toward you, quietly, precisely, in a way that won't overwhelm your heart when it arrives. Because Allah knows something about you that even you forget sometimes. You don't just want things to work out. You want them to feel right. You want peace, not just success. Stability, not just excitement. Depth, not just appearance. And Allah honors that. That's why He didn't give you shortcuts. That's why He didn't let you settle for what almost fit. That's why He kept you in this space long enough to know the difference between attachment and alignment. And when the moment finally comes, it won't feel rushed. It won't feel forced. It won't feel confusing. It will feel calm. Like something clicking into place quietly. Like relief that doesn't need celebration. Like a deep breath you didn't realize you were holding. And you'll think back to this season, and you'll realize something powerful. You were never being pushed away. You were being positioned. So if today still feels uncertain, that's okay. If you still have questions, that's human. If your heart still feels tender, that's a sign it's alive. Just don't mistake the middle of the story for the ending. Allah is not done with you. Not even close. Before we fully part, let me invite you into one last moment of reflection. If Allah has been teaching you patience, what do you think He's preparing you for? You don't need to have a perfect answer, just an honest one. Leave it in the comments if your heart feels ready. And if this video felt like it met you in a quiet place, share it with someone who's walking through their own silent season. Sometimes the greatest help isn't advice, it's reassurance. We'll continue this journey together in the next video. We'll talk about how Allah heals the heart after long waiting and how to recognize peace when it finally arrives. Until then, keep trusting, keep softening, keep going. The unseen decision has already been signed. And it was signed with mercy. Let me bring this home gently, because endings matter just as much as beginnings. There is a quiet moment coming in your life where you will suddenly realize you're no longer fighting the way you used to. The anxiety won't disappear overnight, but it won't control you anymore. The questions won't vanish, but they won't shake you the same way. You'll notice that your heart feels steadier, quieter, more anchored. And in that moment, you'll understand something without needing words. Allah carried you through this, not by removing every hardship, but by strengthening you from the inside. You didn't become numb. You didn't harden your heart. You didn't lose your faith. You stayed soft in a world that kept testing you. And that is not ordinary. That is a sign that Allah trusted you with depth, with patience, with a journey that would shape you instead of rushing you. Most people only want answers. Allah wanted to give you wisdom. Most people want relief. Allah wanted to give you resilience. Most people want certainty. Allah wanted to give you closeness. And closeness to Allah is the kind of gift that doesn't always feel shiny, but it lasts longer than anything else. So if you ever look back at this season and wonder why it had to be so quiet, so slow, so heavy at times, remember this. Allah does His most delicate work in silence. He builds the strongest hearts away from noise. He prepares the deepest souls away from crowds. He signs the most important decisions in the unseen. And you were included in one of those decisions. That's why this video reached you. That's why you stayed until the end. That's why something inside you felt understood instead of pressured. Before you go, do one last thing for yourself. Take a deep breath and remind your heart. I am not late, I am not forgot, I am not alone. If these words walked with you through a quiet moment, let me know by leaving a comment. Even a single word is enough. Your presence here matters more than you think. And if you know someone who has been strong for too long, someone who feels unseen, share this with them. You might be the answer to a prayer they haven't spoken out loud. Stay connected with Deen and discipline. The next video will go deeper into what happens after long patience, when Allah finally replaces waiting with peace. Until then, be gentle with yourself. Allah already is.